Motherhood is a beautiful journey, but it comes with deep challenges and expectations. In this episode, I sit down with maternal mental health expert Kate Kripke to talk about the pressures of being the good girl, mom guilt, and breaking free from old conditioning. If you have ever questioned if you are doing enough, this conversation will remind you that real motherhood isn't about perfection, it's about connection. Are you ready to dive in? Welcome. I am Claudia Noriega-Bernstein, abundance coach, author, and host of the award-winning Don't Shrink to Fit podcast, which recently won the Woman in Podcasting Award in the coaching category. Over the past 15 years, I have the privilege of connecting with women from around the world, and I am here to share all the tools I have learned along the way to help you uncover new possibilities in your life. Let's grow beyond limits so you never have to shrink to fit again. Hi, Kate. I'm so happy you're here. We're going to get to know each other.
Just like that, on air, live, we're going to get to know each other. I love it. It's the best
I,
kind of meet and greet.
I got to share to my audience that I usually have a little bit of an information about my guests, but this time, for some reason, um, the application that Kate filled out got lost in the shuffle. So I'm getting to know her at the same time that you guys are getting to know her. So this is going to be very juicy. So welcome.
Thank you. And isn't that sort of perfect for your show? Because so often we can feel like we have to have everything just right in order to be successful. And here we are just winging it because what else are you going to do? We might as well wing it.
Well, we're both moms, so we're very familiar with the winging it part
Yes,
of
we
it.
are.
We have a whole day plan, and then, sorry, I forgot my lunch bag, or sorry, I have a doctor appointment, I need you to come, and the whole calendar goes to waste because
Yeah.
that's how life is. We have our priorities, and if something more important come, everybody else can wait.
Yep. Unpredictability and uncertainty. It's the name of the game in
Yeah,
motherhood, in the
it
fabric.
is. It
Mhm.
is. And for what I could read in your website, you were working first with moms that were pregnant, correct?
So my background for 20 years, I was working as a more traditional psychotherapist for pregnant
Mm-hmm.
and postpartum women. I started a clinic here in Boulder, Colorado. I decided kind of through the pandemic that I wanted to be working with moms in a different manner than more traditional psychotherapy. And so my clients are most often women with younger kids, 0 to 5. Although, again, how old are your kids, Claudia?
Oh, I'm 58. My kids are 27, 29, and 32.
Okay. I'm
I gotta think
52.
twice because
I'm 52 and my daughters are 16 and 18. So I'm like a phase behind you. But as we know, 0 to 5, then becomes 5 to 10, then becomes 10 to 15, right? It's sort of all the same stuff, only it shows up a little bit differently. But the work I do is really around supporting high achieving, career driven, often, not always, but success driven women who are
hmm
struggling with things like emotional overwhelm and anxiety and guilt and burnout in motherhood.
right.
And that's one of the reasons I love your show is because we can think, so many of us are the good girls. We grew up being the good girl, right?
Oh, we grew up wanting to be the good
There you go.
girl.
Perfect. I love it. Exactly. We grew up in one direction or the other, thinking that there was a right way to be and that
Yeah.
something about us was not the
Yeah.
right way to be.
Yeah.
And then we have kids and we want nothing more than to be good moms and to have our kids grow up being healthy and, successful. And we can get so stuck in our heads about what that looks like, right?
100%, 100%. And then it gets a moment, at least it happened to me when my kids were little, that I started to detach myself from where I thought being a good mom was, because I started to remember how I felt as the daughter and
Uh-huh.
where were the voids that I had in my life. So I started to shift into my own way of being a mom because my relationship with my kids, their emotional needs were more important than following those rules that were um, given to me.
Mm.
And when I think when you have that aha moment and you realize, you know what, I'm going to just do it my way,
Mhm.
it's so liberating and so refreshing. And yes, we're probably going to make more mistakes because we're not going to make the same mistakes our parents made. But how amazing it is that we're finding our own way, right?
Yeah, I think for me, that aha moment happened when my girls were really little. And you know, my I had a newborn and a 2.5-year-old.
Mm,
And we try to get it right as if there's one right way, right? We try to do it right. Follow the rules, follow the books. I mean, I don't know. I was so in my head about it because I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to make
right.
any mistakes. But to your point, like based on what definition of good mom, I don't know. But my beautiful toddler, because she was what toddlers do, came running into the room when I was putting my baby down for a nap. And I got so petrified that my baby wouldn't sleep because good moms get their babies to sleep, right?
Right. Right.
Successful families, the babies take regular naps, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't really even about my baby. It was more about me and my definition of am I being a quote unquote good mom?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the moment that I looked at her and she was like wanting to show me a drawing or something. It wasn't even like, and I screamed at her, you
Oh.
know? And I remember the look on her face of pure
Mm.
terror. And thinking to, and then it was like a light bulb went off and thinking, okay, hang on, I cannot keep trying to do this motherhood thing the way I'm telling myself it's supposed to be done because my focus on getting it right, to your point, was missing the reality of connection, of
Hi.
meeting our children's needs, of
Yeah,
like what is right or wrong. Really, we just want our kids to feel seen, heard, and understood and to help them work through their pain and their struggles. And if we're following the rules and trying to get it right all the time, we miss the point.
exactly.
Pretty profound moment. And I think many moms have those moments. The question is, do they pause and
Act.
pivot?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do they stop and think this is just not working and I might disappoint some people, but I'm going to do it my way because my priority is the mental health of my kids. It's for my kids to see, to feel seen and loved and acknowledged what I'm going to do. And a lot of moms, and I'm sure you face this too, a lot of my clients feel that they don't want to disappoint their own mom sometimes,
That's right. Gosh,
you
can we
know?
talk about that for a minute? Because I
Yeah.
think that is like, even when I remember reading an article in the New Yorker magazine when my kids were little, it was an article written by like a 75-year-old woman. And she was telling the story about how she went to go visit her like 99-year-old mother in her retirement community. And she had like a caregiver, but she was staying in her house or her apartment. And the 75-year-old woman took a shower and then walked into the kitchen to get something like with her towel wrapped around her, kind of dripping.
Hmm.
And her 90 whatever year old mother said, don't come out here when you're wet. Dry yourself off first. And this 75-year-old woman went racing back into the bathroom to make sure that she was right. That even for a 75-year-old woman,
She
we don't
went
want
back
to
to be
disappoint our
six
mom.
years old.
Yes,
That's what she
exactly.
did. She went back to
That's
be
right.
6 years old. How many times we had those moments? I
That's
had
right.
many moments like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, listen, I'm 58, and sometimes my husband will say, look at me and goes, what are you doing? And he goes, I will say, I'm just gonna eat something from the pan, but don't tell my mom. Because like I'm brainwashed that that is something wrong
Yeah.
to do, you know? In oftentimes we don't understand that is a constant reminder. You know, we're gonna fall back into our old traps because that's normal because we're humans. But the beauty of pausing, as you said, and realizing there's this is not a big deal. It's okay. The world is not gonna stop because I eat a spoon out of a pan, you know? That may be wrong for her, but then I get to have my own policies. I get to have my own rules. And it's okay because I
How
am my own person.
how do you describe to people? why we do that. It's a really interesting phenomenon. Like, why do we continue to quote unquote care so much what our mothers think, even when intellectually or rationally we may know it doesn't really matter? And yet, from a heart place, from a somatic place, we're
Mhm.
still hooked in. How do you talk about that with people?
I think it comes to, at least I can talk about this, about my experience.
Yes.
I think it comes from a place of being loved, wanted, and enough. So we attach, if I am a good girl and I do A, B, or C, my mom is going to be proud of me. She's going to love me. I'm going to feel enough. I'm going to feel wanted. I'm going to fit in, and blah, 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 that we tell ourselves. And that's something that in my case happened when I was very little. I had a mom that was not emotionally available. So for me, being a good girl and being a good girl in her eyes was gonna get me for her to love me. So I lived the majority of my life doing what I thought was gonna make her happy. Sometimes I didn't even ask. I just thought this was gonna make her happy. So I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Like, I remember when my kids were little, and I consider myself a good mom, and this is what I can coach other moms, because I am happy with my results.
Yes.
So I would do things, and then I would think, would she approve this? And then my kids will do something, like, I don't know, like my kids, for example, one of my daughters will forget to call her on her birthday, okay? And then I was terrified that she was going to think that I was a bad mom because I didn't remind my daughter to call her on her birthday. So she was my thermostat all the way. I had no control until I took my power back, and I'm like, you know what? I have a better relationship with my daughters that she has with any of her kids.
Mm.
I am present. I work my butt off to support my kids because I was a single mom for a very long time. I did everything that I felt in my heart and in my gut that was the right choice for them. And I have three amazing daughters. So I don't need anybody to give me the stamp in my forehead or in my hand and tell me, you did good. You're a good girl. You're a good mom. I didn't need that anymore. But I can understand other moms that still go into those motions because they want to feel accepted and liked and loved and worthy and all of the above. I mean, that's
Yeah.
my experience. What happened to you?
Well, I will share my experience, which is not that different than yours, although maybe a little bit of a twist. But what I think I hear you saying, which makes so much sense to me, is that for many of us when we're young, it's all or nothing thinking. Either my mother or parent, but we'll say either my mother is proud of me and she loves me, or she's not and she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, if I'm going to make sure that she loves me, I need to do the things that she wants me to do so that she feels okay, which of course is backwards because children are not supposed to take care of their parents and their parents' emotions, right? But that I think that happens so often. And even as
Yeah.
parents, we can unintentionally send that message to our kids if we're not paying attention, right? Because it's easier, let's be honest, easier to parent a child who's quote unquote behaving well and doing well.
Right.
Right?
It's complacent, right?
Yes,
I remember
exactly.
one time my daughter, I think she was 12 years old, and she says, um, I don't want to disappoint you.
Yeah.
And I turned around to her and I said something that Cher actually said, the
Uh-huh.
singer.
Uh-huh.
I said, you need to be good with God and yourself.
Uh-huh.
And you are going to make choices that I might not be aligned with. But
Mm.
as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror, as long as you are happy with who you are becoming and what are you doing in your life and the choices you're making, and you're not hurting anybody, it's okay if I'm
Oh,
not aligned. So in
oh,
that moment, by me giving my daughter permission to
yes.
be who she authentically was meant to be, I gave permission to myself. It
Yes.
was that split second listening to her. I saw myself in her. Even
Yes.
though I never went to my mom and said, I don't want to disappoint you. My actions were screaming that.
Mm.
So when my daughter said, I don't want to disappoint you, I went like, wait a minute. It stops with me. This
And
is not going to move forward.
what a gift. Oh, well, first of all, amazing that your daughter felt safe enough to say that to you. You wouldn't even see, you didn't even, there was even, you were just doing whatever you were doing as a child. And here's your daughter who said that to you. And what a gift to you to have that moment to have your daughter say that. I think
Yeah.
sometimes when our kids say things to us like that, we feel so concerned that we forget to see it as this incredible opportunity to,
Right.
again, pause and pivot and do something different.
Right.
I was raised by a mom who worked full time. I grew up in New York City.
Hmm.
Both my parents were lawyers and they worked all the time. And my mom, I think, felt so guilty about how much she was working that when she was home with me, again, I don't know that I could have really put this into words when I was young, of course, but I
Hmm.
felt a need to help her feel like a good mom.
You became the parent.
Yeah, exactly. And it was sort of like I took on this, it didn't really matter what it felt like to me. Same, I guess, same as what you're saying. What mattered to me is that my mom felt like a good mom, right? And I think I was raised by, my mom is no longer alive, but my mom was the ultimate
Sorry.
good girl. She was like, I mean, the last thing she said to me before I took her to the airport, last time I saw her, she said, I've been running for class president every day of my life.
Oh,
I
that
mean,
makes me want to cry.
I know, doesn't that just make your body tired? I mean,
That makes me want to cry
yeah.
because in my heart, although my mom, I don't know how to say this without sound judgmental, but she didn't check all the boxes for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that inspired me to be the mom I never had.
Yes.
Um, I feel that if I could come back and go back in time, I would come back as her mom. So I could give her all the love and all the acknowledgement and all the tools that I have. I
Yes.
remember watching a video of, I think it was Kathy Bates, I think it's her last name. I'm terrible with names. She's an actress.
Mhm.
And she received an Oscar and she had a very narcissistic mom. And the interviewer said, what do you regret about that night? And she said, I regret that I didn't thank my mom. Although her relationship with her mom was horrible. And he said, yes, you did. And she goes, no, I didn't. And I've been living all these years, with that pain that I didn't thank her because, yeah, she wasn't a good mom, but she was my mom and I should have thanked her. So he says, we went back many years ago and got the video, and you did thank your mom. And she started crying when she saw her saying, I want to thank my family and my mom. She specifically
Mm.
thanked her mom. And so the interviewer said, why are you so affected? And she answered, because she should have had my life.
Mm.
And I think that when you get to that point, when you have that empathy and that love for somebody that perhaps didn't give you what you expected or harm you in ways that are unimaginable, um, you're freeing yourself.
Yes.
And that's the goal, right? To live free and happy and joyful and be able to spread that to the world.
Yes.
So it was a lot of it was very challenging for me for many years to get to that point,
Yeah, sure.
but it's a gift.
And it's a both and, right? Like we can still give ourselves permission to feel the grief or the anger, the sadness or the whatever it is at not having received everything that we actually needed when we
Hmm.
were young.
Hmm.
We can give ourselves permission to feel those things and honor our mothers as actually probably not having the resources they needed to do it any differently, right?
And they probably were not that happy anyway,
Exactly.
you know? I mean,
Exactly.
I have grieved the version of my mother that I wish I had.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
have grieved her, like, you know what? I miss
Yes.
you. I wish you would be here. I'm
Yeah.
sorry you're not. But I want to acknowledge you at the same time because I know that you could have. You
Yes.
could have been that. So I'm going to celebrate that mom that you could have been. I'm going to grieve the mom that you were never. And I'm going to forgive the mom that you are.
I'm not sure that we can do that until we do that for ourselves. So,
100.
like you're talking
100%.
about having gone through that moment in your life when you were like, I am no longer going to do it in a way where I am unintentionally projecting things onto my kid or beating myself up for not, like, you shifted that. And then once you
Mhm.
were compassionate with yourself, you had more space for her.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And acceptance too,
And acceptance.
because you have to accept the fact that she's never going to be that person that you want her to be.
Yes.
And for years, Kate, I was hoping for years,
Yeah.
like maybe this time she'll congratulate me. Maybe this time she'll send me a text message saying, I'm proud of you. Maybe this time she'll see my daughters that are good kids and they're loving and they care for me and they're smart and, they're good humans and say, look at you. That was great. You're a good mom. I never got it.
Yeah.
So I received an apology that I never received. I received, and I'm sorry that I never received. And that was all part of my healing. That was
Yeah.
all part of, learning what I have control to and what I don't.
I think one of the things that I'm realizing as you're talking about this, and I love this conversation so much, is that so often we don't realize that we're bringing into our mothering of our children the things that we deeply do not want to bring forward. Like, for example, let's use this example of, you know, as a child, really, really desperately needing my mother to be proud of me so that I felt loved, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then without even realizing it, I can come forward into my mothering journey with my daughters and focus on all the things that my daughters are doing really well for me to be proud of them so that I feel like a good mom,
Yeah.
right?
So then you can go to her and say, look, they're so great. Did you
That's
see
right.
that?
That's right. And then without even realizing it, I have a daughter who desperately needs me to be proud of her so that she feels good about herself.
Yeah.
And it's unintentional, but until we start getting curious and reflecting and asking ourselves these questions, it's inevitable that we're going to carry some of this stuff forward, you know? Which is
Yeah.
why podcasts like this are so helpful and the work we do is so helpful. And just any willingness to ask the questions, which is also a really painful part, is to pause. Like when your daughter said that to you and you had to pause and be like, wait a second, what am I doing here that I need to shift? Or when my daughter, when I screamed at
And
my
I
daughter,
knew exactly what I was doing because I didn't want to tell my kids ever that I was angry at them. So I
aha,
would use the word disappointed, right? I am because I thought that was softer, but I didn't know the effect that was causing me saying that. So I would say, you know what? I'm not angry at you, but I'm really disappointed that you made that choice because, look at the consequences of that choice. So I would use that was my crutch, that word was my crutch. And I didn't realize that she was really taking that word to heart. I'm disappointed in my mom. And then when she said it to me, I'm like,
wow.
I'm a bad mommy. Why did
Yeah.
I say that? And also give myself grace and
Yes.
and say it's okay, we're learning, we're
Yes.
we're trying, and we're gonna do better the next time. And that's the only thing we can do. When I had a mom once that said to me, I have become a narcissistic person and I resent my kids because I don't have the life that I wanted. And I was like, That's incredible that you're saying that.
Mm,
And you should be proud of yourself for acknowledging those feelings,
mm,
because you can fix anything that you don't acknowledge. So now that we know, we can work on that. And she's looking at me like, you're freaking crazy that
uh-huh,
you're so excited about this. And I'm like, this is a breakthrough. You don't understand the fact
right.
that you can verbalize something like that is huge. And you should be so proud of yourself, because not only you're having the courage to acknowledging that, but you're open to change that. So, wow, I want to get
Yeah.
up and give you a hug right now.
It's amazing. And it's the courage to acknowledge it and then to feel all the feelings that come with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Do any of your kids have kids yet?
No, one is trying.
Okay.
So fingers crossed it will be soon. She's the only one married. Um, I have a stepdaughter that's gonna have a baby in April, but
Uh-huh.
I have three kids and my husband has three kids. So
Okay.
it's a blended family. But
Yes.
my daughters, the three of them, the only one married is my middle one. One
Okay.
lives in, yeah, in Miami, the other one lives in California, and the
Okay.
one that is here is the one that is trying. So, and
Oh,
I
wow.
can't even imagine how my life is going to change when I have a grandkid, because I don't regret anything that I did in my life with my girls, because I'm based on results and the results are good. You know, I feel the love of my kids and they feel my love, and we're like my husband said, not normally very tight. He's like, yeah, but
Uh-huh.
that's not normal.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so I love that. But I have so many more tools in my toolbox
Yes.
now that
Yes.
I can't wait to share with that little human that is gonna
Yes.
come to join our lives. So I'm very excited about it, and I feel very blessed to have that, in a way, do over, that I can bring all this knowledge that I have now to my daughter. And my daughter works with me. So my daughter is coach 24/7. She's with me in my retreats. She works with me. So
Uh-huh.
without me really coaching her, she gets coached all the time. Two of my daughters, actually, because one of my daughter does my reels for the
Uh-huh.
for the podcast, so they
Uh-huh.
gotta listen to the whole podcast
Oh
to make
yeah,
sure.
they're like
And I'm like,
reliving their child. I am often saying to my clients, which I think is one of the most motivating things, is that when we pause and ask ourselves those hard questions, like your client did for you and what you and I both did, when we pause and ask ourselves those questions, and you said a moment ago, it stops here, right? The buck
mm-hmm,
stops here. This
mm-hmm.
way of parenting stops here. And we mother our children differently so that they feel truly seen, heard, and understood, right? So that they're like, you know, getting what they actually need from us. When we do that, we're changing the lives of our grandkids
Yes, yes.
because they then get to model and take from the relationship that we provided for our daughters or our kids, boys or girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get to take what they learned from that and parent their children in a different way.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
is so profound, isn't
That
it?
is so cool too.
So cool.
Hey, Mama, I see you. You're juggling it all: your family, career, home, losing yourself in the process. But listen, you don't have to live this way. What if the key to finding yourself is unbecoming everything you were told to be? Join me on April 5th for the Art of Unbecoming retreat in Las Vegas, a sacred space for women ready to break free, reconnect with their intuition, and step into their most authentic selves. Through guided self discovery, healing art, meditation, sound bath, delicious food, and a supportive sisterhood, you will release what no longer serves you and create a path back to you. This isn't just a retreat, it's a homecoming. Spaces are limited, so don't wait. Click the link below to claim your spot. It's time to unbecome who you are not, so you can finally embrace who you truly are.
It's
You
so
know,
cool.
that's what I write children's books. I don't know if you know this, but I write
No, I
children's
didn't.
books.
No.
So I write children's books about difficult subjects. So it's divorce, grief, secrets don't include mom, bullying, and I do it because I honestly think that that's the only way we can change the world is one
Yes.
kid at a time.
Yes.
And you know, somebody was talking to me about politics the other day, which I don't talk about politics or religion because my husband is Jewish and I'm Catholic and I'm an
Yeah.
independent and he's a Democrat. So you know
Yeah.
what? We don't talk about those subjects because we won't
Yeah.
agree, right? And
Yeah.
and me being an independent, I get to criticize both sides. So that's good.
There you go.
There you
That's
go.
right.
So, but we were talking about, some of the people out there, and I turned around to my husband and I said, "You do realize that those were kids
Yeah.
at some point, and those kids were raised to believe whatever they
Yes.
believe right now."
That's right.
So, all the narcissistic was raised by a narcissistic. The emotionally unavailable was raised by an emotional unavailable. We do have the choice when we become adults to change the narrative or shift or choose a different path. But most of the time we stay where we're comfortable. Even if we are in pain, we stay where we are comfortable. And a lot of these adults, you know, didn't have what our kids had.
Yes.
So our kids are going to be better adults, not because they're our kids, but because they were able to have those options and those tools.
Yes.
And just seeing how scary the world can be by being run by people that are not emotionally intelligent. eh, I mean, that by itself should make you pause and get curious and say, "Hey, what can I do this different?" You know?
One of the things that I think is so interesting, and mothers are obviously just one form of leader, right? Parents were right, and then we have
Hmm.
leaders of a country and well, all these things, right? I'm sure you know the statistic that in general, as humans, we would rather be right and fail than be wrong and succeed.
Yeah.
We like being able to say, "See, I told you so,"
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And you think about how many parents out there are afraid to acknowledge that they're wrong about something, right? That they've made a mistake, say I'm sorry or I got that wrong. And really to me, the glue in a relationship, whether it's a leader in that leader's country or a mother and her child, is our ability and willingness to say I got that wrong. I got that wrong.
100%. Oh my God. You know, I was talking to my daughter today. She just drove from California and we were talking about a situation. And she said that she has said, "I'm sorry" to her boyfriend because she made a comment that she didn't feel was aligned with who she want to be.
Yeah.
And because my kids, they use the lingo, okay? They
Yeah.
talk like coaches.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's so funny. So I was thinking when she was talking, that I apologize to my kids when
Mm,
I'm wrong.
mm.
I will say to my daughters, "You know what? That was wrong. I'm sorry. I should have handled it differently." Now,
Yes.
mind you, that when my kids were little, I used to say to them, if I would get upset, I'll say, "I need some time because when people are mad, they say things they don't mean. And I don't want to say something to you
Mm,
that could hurt you."
mm,
Because
mm.
I knew the bruises that I got with words when I was a kid,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I never wanted to do that to them.
yeah.
So they emulate the same
Yes.
behavior now that they're adults,
Right.
and they say, "I'm sorry." They don't have any problem saying, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." And they go further. "I apologize if I hurt your feelings. What can I make it up to you?" You know? And
Yes.
all the things that I say to my kids, for example, and I said it to her today, is like, we can have different opinion about a situation, but you cannot argue my emotions because those are my emotions and I get to feel what I want to feel, even if my feelings are based on limiting beliefs, even if my feelings are based on the wrong information. At that point, it doesn't matter. We can get curious and investigate and go deeper. But if I tell you you hurt me, that should be reason enough for you to say, "I'm sorry I hurt you," because
Beautiful.
that wasn't your intention. I said, when you walk in the street and you bump into a stranger, you turn around, you say, sorry, don't you? So
Yeah.
why is it so hard to say I'm sorry to the people we love?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry. I mean, I see your sign above you. It's okay to make mistakes, right? I'm sorry. I made a mistake, right? I didn't realize that this thing ultimately was going to cause harm to you, if that's what we're saying, right?
Right.
And help me understand. Tell me more.
Tell me more. Right. I love that you asked me that question because I'm curious to know A, B, C, and D.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I always welcome that when my kids, are upset about something or they're frustrated about something. Tell me more. And why do you feel like that?
Yeah.
And how that makes you feel in your body.
Yes.
Where are you feeling it? Listen, I
Yeah.
had I had cancer 3 times, and I
Wow.
had it in my thyroid, between my heart and my lungs, and in my uterus. There is no coincidence that I had cancer in my three chakras for a reason. It's totally motherly related. So I was either holding pain, holding my words, holding my emotions, whatever I was holding, find a little nest inside of me and become yucky, you know? So I learned that if I don't express myself in a kind way, because you can say the same thing 1,000 different ways, then that is going to sit inside of me and it's going to get me sick.
Mm,
So, to an extent, it's a selfish way to handle things, right? Like, I don't want it, so I'm just going to talk about it. But I do. And
mm.
that was very important for me that my kids learn that
Yes.
your emotions are valid. They don't have to agree with them, but they don't get to dismiss them.
That's right. And they always make sense given the context. So when you say, even if this emotion is based on a limiting belief, the
Mm-hmm.
emotion makes sense given the limiting belief, right? So we can
Yeah.
have lots of conversations about whether or not that belief is fact or not,
Right.
but the emotion
It's real.
sense is real and is never the problem. The emotion is never the problem. I think many of us grow up in families where we're taught that feeling uncomfortable emotions is bad or wrong or dangerous or whatever it
It's
is.
a
So
no-no.
yeah. Yeah, and then we have these little babies that feel big emotions all the time. It's no wonder we feel so anxious in new motherhood, right? If we've never been taught that feeling emotional discomfort is okay, and you got this little bundle of feeling and messiness and unpredictability, early motherhood's going to feel real hard, right?
Yeah, and I talk about something similar in another interview that with somebody that does somatic work,
Hmm.
and we were talking about the importance of acknowledging the kid's feeling, even when he's a 2-year old.
Yeah,
Instead of telling the kid stop crying, even
right.
if you cannot handle that in that moment, explain that their emotions are valid. We'll talk about it later. I'm not dismissing you. I
Mm,
see you. I hear you. But this is not the right moment, but I'm not going to forget. And we're going to talk about it and then bring it up. Be accountable. If you're going to say, we're going to talk about it later, then go and talk about it later. Because if not, what are you telling your kid? Your
what do
emotions
you
are not important.
In your work, what do you say to someone who gets all this
Mm-hmm.
but doesn't know how to feel that uncomfortable emotion, right? Like so often the emotion itself feels scary. And so we're like, yeah, great. I understand the concept, right? I mean, and your story, your cancer story is fascinating to me and
Yeah.
profound and real. I mean, I believe it. But so if someone's like, okay, well, I know I need to feel the emotion, but how? Like, what does that even mean or look like? Because I think a lot of people aren't taught that. We're taught to deflect or distract or blame or pick up a bottle of booze or pick up this thing and tune out on our phone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But when I talk to them, I said, first of all, I tell them when you have an emotion, I have actually a client that I was talking about this with her. I said, when you feel like that, notice it, acknowledge it. If you can pause in that moment, pause. If you cannot pause in that moment, go into your phone, your notes, and write down whatever it is that you're feeling. And then
Mm,
when you go home, journal about it.
Mm.
So you start getting familiar. So you
Mm.
become friends with your emotion. So that emotion is not a stranger, it's not a threat, it's not scary. Once we become familiar with our emotions, we can embrace them, and we can get curious, and we can dig in a little deeper, and we can talk a little more, and we can see in what other occasions you feel like that and what is triggered that emotion. And it's fascinating because you can have 10 people that feel anxiety, and the anxiety is coming from 100 different places.
Yes.
So, and I think that that's the beauty of what we do, is that we love doing it and we enjoy learning. Like, I am super coachable. I am super coachable. Like, I can be with a client and I'm coaching, but then I talk to my coach, and I will say, and I felt this and that, because sometimes I get triggered too. I mean, I'm sure you do too.
Of
So then I,
course.
and I will go in and get curious and say, I was feeling this, I was feeling that. And listen to my coach coaching me and understanding, give me more tools, so then when I'm talking with my client the next time and I revisit that, I have something else to give to them. And okay, we have another 15 minutes. I want to go back to last session. Do you remember when you felt that way? What have you learned in this week? What
Mm.
have you journaled about this week?
Mm.
I want to know.
Mm.
And sometimes just feeling seen,
Mm.
it's all they need, because
Totally.
then they run with that. They're not dismissed. They are so used to being dismissed.
Yeah.
And I was so used to being dismissed. I felt like that's the way love feels. They give me 10% and the rest I gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's not. We get to have the 100%.
Yes. And our emotions are the same thing, right? Like, that we all love the movie Inside Out,
Oh.
all the right. So all of it, we all love that movie. But I think of that often. Like, I remember I grew up with a ton of anxiety, like panic attacks as a child, ton of anxiety. And I remember a practice I took myself through. This was like maybe
Hmm.
15 years ago. I remember doing this, where I have a regular meditation practice, morning practice, where I sit every
Hmm.
morning.
Hmm.
And in this practice, I would invite in all the feelings of anxiety. I would like consciously, as I was breathing, think about something that made me feel anxious, so that I would feel anxiety as I was sitting there. And of course, over time, we learn that it's just a feeling. It's
Exactly.
inconvenient and uncomfortable, but not harmful. And then the
Hmm.
more we feel it, the more familiar we get with it, and then the less damage it does, right? Because
And
it's
it's
sort of
less threatening
exactly.
because now we know it.
Exactly.
We are afraid of what we don't know. But once we
Yes.
know it, it's okay. I do something similar with tapping.
Uh-huh.
I do
Yeah.
something similar. I bring that thought back.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I'm ready. Let's bring that bitch back
Yep.
and let's tap on it so we can get familiar and send the message to my brain that it's safe to
Yes.
feel that way.
That's right. And it's a little bit like humans. So just like children need to feel seen and heard and understood to quiet down, so do our emotions. If we
Yeah,
keep ignoring them and pushing away, they just get bigger and bigger. And I think that's what I realized in that practice is, oh, if I'm just willing to see it and explore it and get curious about it, it actually loses its power, right? It's less of an edge. I mean, sure, I'm a human. There are plenty of times that I still feel anxious, right? I mean, life is
hmm,
so unpredictable and uncertain. Of course, I'm going to feel anxious, but the feeling itself doesn't distract me anymore, right? It's
right.
like, no, that makes sense. But I think I had to practice it. I had to practice the feeling versus resist the feeling. My whole life, I was like, crap, I don't want to feel this. And I would resist it. And as soon as I got curious about it, it like
It
lost all
does.
power.
What we resist persist. That's the rule. What we resist persist.
That's right.
So what do you do with you have a client that is going through those emotions, but they don't they don't trust themselves in doing the work because it's so foreign, it's so scary that they're like, yeah, I know I have to do that, but it's okay. How do you inspire her to try it?
Yeah. Well, I think probably not different from you. I believe really strongly that the change actually doesn't happen in the doing, right? Then many of us high achievers think, okay, I just have to do that thing. I really should do that thing. I keep hearing that thing. I really should just feel that feeling. I really should journal. Right? We are so used to doing things. The challenge, I believe, is that all of that originates in our beliefs about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Starts here.
That's right. Our
Yeah.
deepest, oldest, most unconscious, often very hidden. If I'm a successful, high achieving woman, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that that deeper fear based belief about myself does not come out.
Right.
But those deep beliefs lead to the kind of thoughts we have on a regular basis. Our thoughts on a regular basis lead to how we feel emotionally. Those emotions motivate behavior. And those choices we make, all that behavior, those habits lead to the results of our life, right? So I think one of the things that can happen is that we can quote unquote try to do the right thing and it might work a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I have to eat more healthy. I just have to take a deep breath before I yell. I just have to. But if somewhere back in there, there's a deep limiting belief about myself, back to our earlier conversation, like I'm not lovable
Right.
or
Oh,
I'm
the
not,
more I do, the better mom I am.
yes,
The
or
busy I
I'm
am.
not enough. I mean, that's that one. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
enough. So to
Mm-hmm.
prove that I'm a good enough mom, I have to keep doing more, right?
Right. And say
It,
yes
it,
to everybody and put me in the bottom and eat
yes,
the burnt toast. That makes
yes.
me a good mom.
That's right. That's right. But if we go in there and unearth those often hidden limiting beliefs about ourselves and change them, the rest falls into place. And so then the journaling becomes a no-brainer, right?
Right.
The eating more healthy, the taking a deep breath before we yell at our kids, the like all those things that we know we should do that are good for us
Mm-hmm.
when we change the limiting belief, those things are so much less effortful. So
Yeah.
I think for me, it's really about, I mean, several things. You've already mentioned some of these, but several things. Number one, like, welcome to being a human. We all have these limiting beliefs about ourselves that we learned when we were young that no longer serve us. We all have them.
Yeah.
Does
Coach or no coach, we all go through that.
we all have them. And it doesn't mean we had some big trauma in our life, but we're taught something when we're young about what's
Yeah.
okay and not okay based on how we behave and don't behave. And so we have them. Welcome to being human. I love the shift for me from psychotherapy to coaching is that there really is no pathology in coaching. We're
Yeah.
not seeing people as broken and sick and ill. We're seeing people as human beings that are engaging in habits that no longer serve them. Right.
Unique human beings. Everybody
Yes.
is a unique human being. That's how I see it.
Yes.
And you know what
Yeah.
I'm one thing I do, Kate, with
Yeah.
my clients when they start with the I have to, I shifted to no, you get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get to. It's not that you have to. You don't
Yeah.
have to do anything.
That's right.
You get to do it. And with you getting to do it, you're excited about doing it. How
Yes.
cool it is that you're discovering who you are. How cool it is that you are pinpointing what you have to become that amazing human that you're meant to be. You
Yes.
get to do that for yourself, and you're so blessed to have that opportunity. So you look at me first like she's crazy, you know, and then it's like, yeah, I get to do this. And it's beautiful.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I find in my work that what gets in the way of some people from shifting that from intellect to body, to really
Mm-hmm.
trust that in their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes is a deep limiting belief that, let's say, they're not worthy, right?
Right.
If I don't think
Right.
I'm worthy, if I believe I'm not worthy, then why would I pursue something that I get to do? It's
Right.
incongruent, right?
Right. I'm going to set myself to fail.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to even
exactly.
try.
And we do that all the time. We get in our own way all the time.
Well, it starts in our heads.
Yeah.
It starts in
Yeah,
our
isn't
heads.
it? It's funny to watch children, I mean, I a blessing and a curse. Your kids have a coach as a mom. My kids, I'm trained as a therapist. I was a psychotherapist for 20 years, like blessing and a curse. The poor children, right? It's like, stop asking me questions, right?
Don't
But
coach me.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I love watching from afar because it's so obvious when they're getting in their own way.
Uh-huh.
you know?
Yeah,
We can't tell them that. They have to figure that out themselves.
I
But
know.
from a distance, it's just a reminder of how much I got in my own way and still do. We all have blind spots.
But in the same token, how rewarding it is when you listen to them coaching other people without them knowing they're coaching other people and repeating what we have said to them, and we're like, yes, I got a good kid. She's
Oh,
listening and she's in touch with herself and she's accepting and loving herself. And I had something to do with this. And it's
yes.
amazing. It's
Yes.
beautiful. Before we finish, I want to ask you about your book. Tell
Yes.
me about your book, please.
Yeah. So my book is called Reinventing Supermom, and the
Mhm.
subtitle is Support, Encouragement, and Strategies for New Moms Who Feel Lost. So it really is designed for that new mother who is struggling with a lot of emotional overwhelm in new motherhood. And, from a kind of more clinical perspective, we do know that 1 in 5 moms, if not more, will struggle with clinical levels of depression and anxiety postpartum.
Mhm.
My perception of that has shifts since I was a clinician, right? Again, what I see as the major cause of
Mhm.
anxiety in new motherhood now has more to do with those deep limiting beliefs and fears someone has about themselves when they enter motherhood. So
Their capability of being a good mom.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or yeah, and so many of us were so capable outside of motherhood, and then we try to bring all those tools and strategies to motherhood, like the planning and the organizing and the staying in control. And you try to bring that to motherhood, and of course, you're going to fail every time
Mhm.
because motherhood is so unpredictable and uncertain. So, anyway, the book is really written for that new mom who is just feeling lost. And it is a book that is meant to be underlined and dog-eared and read and reread. They're very short little kind of pieces of information that give insight and support when we are just in it, when we can't see outside of it on our own. So that's the book. And my
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna have the in the description of the show. I'm gonna have
perfect.
the information so people can get it, and um,
Thank
I want to get it, and I want to learn more and from
thank you.
you.
My
So this is gonna be
daughter,
great.
my that book came out a number of years ago, but my now 16-year-old daughter made the cover. She did the
I
cover
love
of that book.
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Mm.
Wow. Well, my books are they're is a story of Valentina, which is a little girl who has a stuffed animal. I don't know if I have it here. Let me see. Yeah, this one, for example, is
Yeah.
where
Okay.
did grandma go? So she has a little stuffed animal that become an imaginary friend, and it's the white elephant in the room. So
Ah,
she
so good.
talks. She talks like I'm gonna show you one page that the elephant is big. So she talks to her friend the elephant as an imaginary friend about difficult subjects, but it's the white elephant in the room. So it's Valentina and her white elephant, and I thought it was a good idea not to single it the parents, like talk to mom or talk to dad. So
Yes.
this is a neutral
Yeah.
character that the little kid is expressing herself to and is figuring things out with. So you know
I
what?
am.
I love when coaches write books because
Yeah,
they write it from experiencing knowledge, not just data,
I
you
agree.
know?
I also have to say I love children's books, and I actually think that they are almost more valuable for the adults than the children, right? And
I
I'm
say
like,
that I write children books for parents.
yeah, as you should. I mean, I am going to check
Look,
those
I have
out.
in the back, I have questions that parents can ask their kids
Oh, oh, that's
about the
amazing.
story because it's how many times we'd say something to our kids and they listen something else. So, what did you hear me say? What are you curious about? What do you think really happened? Right? And then they can go and get a QR code here, the QR code, get these
Yeah.
pages so they can color them and continue talking about the subject.
Oh, Claudia is brilliant. Brilliant.
I just won an award for the international book something.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
That is amazing.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I love
But
it.
But this is my contribution to the world. Honestly, I tell my
Yeah.
husband I'm paying forward.
Yeah.
I want my grandkids and my great grandkids to inherit a better world, and we
Yes.
gotta start with the kids now. So that's the only way we can do it.
Ah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love it because the more we can help those moms feel good about themselves and trust themselves and show up with steadiness even when experiencing hard things, the more
Hmm.
likely their kids are to get what they need to be healthy and well. And those kids are
And
going to be
thrive.
the next leaders of this world. So,
Yes. Yes. So I have one more question for you. Tell me
yeah.
what's your superpower?
Oh my goodness, my superpower. What is my superpower?
That's so funny. We have the same glasses.
We I
I was like,
love it.
glasses. I'm like, we have the same glasses.
Here's my superpower, I think, of the moment. My superpower when you ask that is I am very good at seeing all sides. Like I do not believe that there's one right and one wrong of anything. And I know we're in a world right now that is so divided.
Black and white. Yeah.
And the truth is that, as we said earlier, there's context to everything.
Yeah.
And and that's that both and. I think when we get scared, we think in rigid thinking, is it this or is it that? And I think
Hmm.
that my capacity for discomfort, maybe that's the superpower, allows me to sit in all of it and not feel like I have to choose. And it makes things easier for me because I can move through hard situations and not get too attached or wrapped up to any end result, right? Because it's
Right.
like, here we are. It's all
Hmm.
true. So I don't know. That was sort of a floppy answer, but
It's not flappy. It's very insightful. And I I do believe that there is a lot of shades of gray. There is
yes.
no such a thing as black and white,
No.
And for half of my life I thought it was black and white. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, no, wait a minute. I also like silver sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It all depends on the day. I mean,
It all depends
context
on
is
the day.
everything.
It's like when
Yeah.
somebody asked me once, how do you like your eggs? And I'm like, well, sometimes in a cake, sometimes poached. I don't know how am I going to wake
Yeah.
up today, but I don't
Yeah.
want to give you one answer and have the same eggs the rest of my life. No way. You know?
I think in motherhood, that's a saving grace. I
Yeah.
think that I mean, back to how we started, the rigid thinking of, is it this way or that? What's the right way to do something? And the reality is there's no one right way. You do it our way, right?
And then if you make a mistake, you try again.
Exactly. And you repair and you say, I'm sorry. And then you bridge the relationship with that. So,
Yeah, I'm sure the first time your oldest daughter lost the pacifier, you went in with a disinfectant spray and whatever. Listen, my third one, the pacifier will fall on the floor. I will put it in my mouth,
yeah.
and that will be the
Yeah,
wiping and put it right back in her mouth.
that's
I would
right.
have never done that with my first
That's
daughter
right.
because I thought I had to be like so cautious. So yeah, we learn.
Yes.
We evolve, we
Learn.
learn, we make mistakes, and we try again.
As we wrap up, maybe I'll just say one more thing with this, which I think you have. I can hear it in your voice. I think I have it. That's probably why we're having such an easy time talking. And my guess is your daughters have it. And I know my daughters have it, which is the deep belief that we are okay. I am okay. That deep belief that I don't have to feel awesome to trust that I'm okay, right? And that's that thing, right? When we are afraid to, we want to throw out the pacifier, it's because we have this something bad's going to happen. My baby won't be okay, and we learn that we're resilient, that we can
Yeah,
get hard things, and honestly, as long as we're being honest and asking ourselves
authentic. Mhm.
questions, it's usually all going to work out just fine.
Yeah, and it usually does at the end.
Yes.
And if it hasn't, it's not the end yet.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I mean, man, there's a lot of pain in this world. And we usually can make it through. As long as we're still breathing, we've been okay, right?
As long as we are still breathing, there is hope,
Yes,
and we can try again.
I would agree.
I love talking to you. Thank you so much, Kate. This was
You
so
too,
much fun. I
Claudia.
hope you had fun. So it
I
was
had
great.
fun. Look at all the spontaneous conversation that just flowed. I love it.
And I stop it or not yet? Stop it. There you go. Stop recording. Thank you all for listening to the Don't Shrink to Fit podcast. If you like this episode, please write a juicy comment below and subscribe to my podcast. Remember, we can only fly if we embrace each other. Until next week, be happy, be safe, and be kind to yourself.